Today we're going to be talking about PC cases, specifically this, the Corsair Carbide series Spec-Delta Rgb. Now I bought this earlier this year when I built my new video editing PC, and I've been using it for about 3 months. And in this video I want to give you guys an overview of the case, tell you what I think about it, show you some of its plus points and weaknesses, and then give you my thoughts if I think you should consider buying this case or not. So the first thing we're going to do is take a quick look at the case itself, and then I'm going to talk to you guys about what I actually think it's like. The Corsair Carbide series Spec-Delta Rgb is a mid-tower ATX gaming case with a tempered glass side panel and a smoked front panel. It includes 3 RGB fans as standard, and it has a capacity of up to 5 fans in total. The case supports up to 320mm fans behind the front panel, or radiators up to 360mm for cooling. Now these fans are supplied air via a grill at the bottom of the case as well as a small one at the top. At the top of the case, it supports up to a 240mm radiator or 2 140mm fans. This is covered by a magnetic removable filter. Finally, at the rear, there is space for either a 120mm radiator or 120mm fan. Now, to remove the side panel, you simply unscrew the 4 thumb screws that are located in each corner, and this will give you access to the inside of the case. Now, at the bottom, there is a large PSU shroud, and then the space above is for your standard ATX size motherboard. Now, whilst this case is slightly smaller than most of them, there is still a little bit of room to the side to allow you to get all your cabling nice and tidy, and the real area where it is a little bit tight is more above the motherboard than anywhere else. Moving around to the rear, you have your normal connections on the left-hand side with your fan on the right and the normal port blanks in place. The PSU is located at the bottom, and it has its fan intake underneath the case, and there is also a small filter included with this as well. Now, the front cover is easily removable, simply pulling off from the bottom. Now, I've actually moved a couple of my fans around, and the bottom one is the fan that you get with this, and the other 2 are the ones off my radiator. Now, you can see that I've actually mounted my cooler behind the main panel, with the fans then locating on the front side, blowing the air into the case, and that's then exhausted out of the back. With regards to ports on the front of this case, you have 2 USB 2 ports located on the front top, your combined headphones and microphone jack, as well as your power button and reset button just above the front panel. Okay, so to give you my thoughts on the Spec-Delta Rgb Pro from Corsair, I've been using this with my video editing PC for the last 3 months. I built it at Christmas, and overall, I have to say I'm happy with the case. However, it does have some limitations, and that is mostly around its size. Now, it was its smaller size that really attracted me to it alongside its price point. It's got that nice compact size, it's got the nice smoked glass window on the side as well, and it looks very nice when it is set up with RGB lights like I've got here. Now, something just to be aware of on that glass panel is, whilst it does look good, it is a total fingerprint magnet, so if you are handling it, you want to get yourself a set of gloves like this. I actually use these to take it off just to show you guys it here now as well, because it takes forever to get the fingerprints off. But when it is clean, it does look very good. But it is that compact size that gives it its limitations, and that is with regards to cooling. Now, the front panel, as I showed you earlier, is pretty much solid with a small grid at the bottom and a much smaller grid at the top, and whilst that does allow airflow, it is heavily limiting. And in my original setup, I actually intended to have my H100i cooler radiator mounted at the top here with its 2 fans located below it. But because the case is a little bit smaller, there is very little room above the motherboard, and I ended up choosing the Vengeance RGB Pro RAM, which is a bit taller than normal RAM. And when I went to assemble it, I found that I couldn't actually fit the radiator and the fan with the Vengeance RGB Pro RAM because it is taller. So I ended up having to move the design around, and what I've ended up doing is moving the radiator to the front. I put the original fans with the H100i behind the front panel, dragging air into the case, and then I've got 3 fans, 1 on the back here and 2 on the top, dragging that warm air out. So the idea is the system drags in cool air through the front, into the radiator, and then that warm air is dragged outside the case. Now, there is a third fan on the front, which I'm using down at the bottom here, which is actually cooling my disk drives, because I do have an additional 2 traditional SATA drives at the bottom down here, so there is a cooler for that. But the issue I actually come across is the limitation of the front panel to allow airflow. In normal use, say on this system, temperatures are okay, fine. I'm having no problems at all. My CPU sits around 30 to 40 degrees depending on the room temperature. Temperature of the water cooler is sitting at around 25 to 28. However, if I stick Blender on it and shove it into full load with all cores of my 3800X running at 4.2 gig, the temperatures rise quickly and I can get the CPU up to around 79 degrees, 79 to 80 it seems to settle on. And the water temperature on the cooler tends to get to around 32 degrees. Now, I would like that to be a little cooler, and I've done some tests, and what I have actually found is that front panel is heavily restricting the amount of airflow that I'm getting through the radiator. If I actually run the same tests with the front panel removed, I'm actually dropping the water temperature by 1 degree and dropping the CPU temperature by 7 or 8 degrees, and that is simply by removing the front cover. So it is clear that that front panel is restricting the amount of airflow in. And I've even tried doing it by turning off the bottom fan that's cooling the disk drives just to see if that stops it, but it's exactly the same. So it is worth taking into account that if you are going to put your radiator on the front, or any fans you do put on the front, the design of this front panel is going to limit you. Now, there was something else I wasn't particularly happy about it with as well, which was the way that when you put the radiator on the front and the fans on, a couple of the bars or the support structure of the case actually covers part of the radiator, and it means that you can't actually get all of the airflow through the little grids. So what I ended up doing is a small modification on the case to cut some of the bars out of the way that were restricting the airflow. I can't say yet if that's made a massive difference, because I've only actually done that this afternoon. I haven't actually fully tested it yet, but it is something I wanted to do just to make sure that I was getting as much air through it as possible. Now, overall, as I said, I really do like the case. I'm more than happy with it. I can see me upgrading if I'm not able to get the temps a little bit lower. Really, my problems stem from this case being shorter and my Vengeance Pro RAM being tall. If I was using traditional size RAM without the RGB LEDs, I would have no problems mounting the cooler at the top. It is simply one of those things you don't find until you go to put the system together, and because that Vengeance Pro RAM is actually really tall, it means it's getting in the way of the fan, and I had to redo the layout. I would have preferred to have been able just to have the standard fans on the front blowing air in, and then the radiator blowing the warm air outside. However, having it blow into the case isn't a dramatic issue, and I'm not seeing worrying temperatures overall. It's really the spikes on the CPU temperature under full load that I would like to reduce, but even so, 79 is still within what they allow in AMD. We're still below 90, but you do feel a bit more comfortable when you are sitting at 70. So if you're considering a smaller case and you're not doing out and out gaming, or you're not certainly going to have major thermal consideration issues, then this case is potentially worth a look. If you are looking to build a system that is going to be running very hot, you do perhaps want to consider another case, especially one with more airflow on the front. What would be really nice if Corsair actually made a different front panel for this, which was much more of a grid, because that's all it would take. It just needs that grid much bigger on the front. I'm actually considering drilling some holes on the left hand side, the bit at the back down here, because the way my case sits in the corner, you can't actually see that, and I'm actually tempted to actually drill the panel holes all the way down, or even cut the side of the case off, and just to allow it to get a bit more airflow in, or I'll end up recasing the machine. It is simply just the nature of the design. Other than that, it's a good case, and if you're considering it, and as long as you're not running it too hot, it's worth a look. That is it for this video. I hope the information has been helpful. If it has, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Please also don't forget to click that little bell button, and you'll get updates on some of the videos that I release in the future as well. Thank you for watching. As I said, please do subscribe, and I will release another video again soon.